Al-Qaeda terrorists, the president said, were on their heels, put up a fierce fight against Iraqi troops for control of two major cities. This is Special Report. Good evening, I'm Brett Baer. President Obama has repeatedly said Al-Qaeda is on the run, on the path to defeat, and decimated. Yet fighters aligned with what was once the gold standard in terrorism are once again making gains in Iraq. Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Herridge has the latest on what appears to be an Al-Qaeda resurgence in a place where Americans fought, died, then left.
The strategic cities of Ramadi and Fallujah in western Iraq, where at least a third of U.S. lives were lost in the war, are now under siege and at risk of falling to Al-Qaeda extremists, with reports on the ground describing militants carrying the black flag synonymous with Al-Qaeda, setting fire to police stations and releasing extremists from jail. The State Department today acknowledged security is deteriorating.
We've condemned this violence in the absolute strongest terms, but let's be clear who's responsible for the violence. It's the terrorists who are behind it.
In the last week, the violence came to a head after a prominent Sunni was arrested, leading to claims that the Shiite-led government of Nouri al-Maliki was targeting its political rivals. The Defense Ministry released this video to underscore Baghdad's efforts to push the al-Qaeda-linked militants from the two key cities in Anbar province, which were the focus of the U.S. surge in 2007. While the president cites the end of the Iraq War as one of his main accomplishments, critics say the Obama administration's failure to reach a status of forces agreement with Baghdad laid the groundwork for the bloodshed.
I do believe that when future historians look back on the Obama era, they will identify his precipitous flight, his hasty retreat from Iraq, as his #1 strategic blunder, foreign policy blunder, and that's saying something.
The State Department spokeswoman bristled when repeatedly pushed by Fox News and the Associated Press on the criticism.
It's not like if we just flipped a switch and did X, Y, or Z, the terrorist threat in Iraq would go away. That's just not how that's not how it works.
The violence is a regional issue, with the attacks in Iraq being carried out under the same banner as hardline jihadists in neighboring Syria. Some analysts allege a pattern of disengagement by the Obama administration created an opening for the regional al-Qaeda affiliates.
The problem is the U.S. didn't move quickly enough in the Syrian rebellion to support the truly moderate opposition. What they did was they allowed basically the extremists and the al-Qaeda types to take over, and they did so over the course of a couple of years.
A new UN report reinforces the precarious conditions on the ground in Iraq. The assessment found nearly 8,000 civilians were killed last year, the highest death toll in recent memory, Brett.
We'll follow it. Thank you, Catherine. U.S. military forces removed about 20 Americans from South Sudan today. The embassy cites a deteriorating security situation for the latest evacuation. Thousands of Sudanese continue to flee from the city of Bor, a major oil-producing area, as ethnic fighting continues. Preliminary peace talks began today. The Australian icebreaker carrying climate change scientists from that Russian ship stranded in Antarctica has been told to stop. The reason? The Chinese ship that helped in the passenger rescue may also be stuck in heavy ice there. No one is said to be in danger, but it's another wrinkle in what has turned out to be a highly complex operation. Speaking of operations on hold, more arguments today following a Supreme Court injunction against the Obamacare contraception mandate. White House correspondent Wendell Goler has the latest from the presidential vacation retreat in Hawaii.
Days after the Little Sisters of the Poor won a temporary reprieve from having to comply with Obamacare's contraception mandate, the government pushed back. Solicitor General Donald Verrilli argued the waiver the group can sign would leave the government to pay the cost. He said, quote, "With the stroke of their own pen, applicants can secure for themselves the relief they seek from this court. And the employer applicants' employees and their family members will not receive contraceptive coverage through the plan's third-party administrator either." But attorneys for the sisters argued they'd still be enabling contraception and morning-after pills, which Catholic faith forbids.
And that is a permission slip that gives other people the permission, authorizes them to do on their behalf what they believe is inappropriate to do even for themselves. And so they can't do that.
In a 2009 speech at the University of Notre Dame, Mr. Obama suggested the government should accommodate religious objections to parts of the law.
Let's honor the conscience of those who disagree with abortion and draft a sensible conscience clause and make sure that all of our health care policies are grounded not only in sound science, but also in clear ethics.
In a written statement, the lead counsel for the Little Sisters said, quote, "The federal government has started the new year the same way that it ended the old one, trying to bully nuns into violating their religious beliefs. The government argues the goal is both to prevent unwanted pregnancies and to foster healthier pregnancies when they're wanted. Officials say secular employees of religious groups shouldn't be denied access to contraception, even when the religious groups won't pay for it. An attorney for the group suggests one solution would be for the government to pay for everyone."
If the government tomorrow came out and provided contraception to all employees all across the country, this case wouldn't be here. The case is only here because the government has insisted on making the Little Sisters a part of their contraception and abortion delivery system.
The sisters today asked the High Court to exempt them from the contraception requirement for as long as it takes for the case to make its way through the lower courts and up to the justices for a final ruling. Meanwhile, a doctors group today asked Chief Justice Roberts to stay an Obamacare provision dealing with Medicare patients, suggesting the legal challenges to the law continue. Brett?
Wendell Goller traveling with the president in Hawaii. Wendell, thank you. Automakers are reporting strong sales for 2013. Ford was up 11%, Chrysler 9%, General Motors and Toyota up 7% apiece. The Dow rebounded after yesterday's rough start to the year, the industrial average gaining 29. The S&P 500 lost 2/3. The Nasdaq dropped 11. For the 4-day week, the Dow was down 0.05 of a percentage point. The S&P 500 and Nasdaq both lost about 0.5 point. The future of one of the nation's premier companies in its native Northwest may be decided tonight. Union members at Boeing are voting right now on whether to take a new deal from the company or reject it and put their jobs in jeopardy. Correspondent Dan Springer has the latest tonight.
Give us a voice! Give us a voice! Democracy worked. We voted. It's over.
There has been anything but union solidarity in Everett, Washington these days, ever since Boeing, the world's biggest airplane maker, threatened to move 12,000 high-paying jobs out of the Seattle area if the machinists didn't vote yes on a contract extension. At issue, pensions. Boeing wants to freeze them and move to a 401k plan. Members rejected the offer by a 2-to-1 margin in November. The company responded by soliciting bids from all over the country to build the 777X and its cutting-edge composite wings. Before choosing from 54 bid sites in 22 states, Boeing tweaked its offer to the machinists. The International Union called for another member vote, but local District 751 resisted.
If we bring an offer every time Boeing comes with a list of demands, what good is it to have a contract in place? It lends legitimacy that any time they come with demands, we have to bring it to a vote.
Political pressure mounted. Democratic Governor Jay Inslee issued a statement saying, "I believe the machinists should have the opportunity to exercise that right. We are at a perilous point in our effort to bring the 777X to Washington State." A growing number of members agreed, including Paul Fritzler, whose son and son-in-law also work for Boeing and don't think the company is bluffing about building the plane elsewhere.
I think that would be devastating not only for my family, but for the community.
The head office of the International Association of Machinists exercised its power and forced the Seattle local to hold today's vote. Some view the Boeing maneuver as an effort to break the union, which has been losing jobs nationally for years. Boeing refused to comment for our story, but given its recent track record with the 787 plane, which is being built all the way in South Carolina by non-union workers, one machinist here told me it's like a high-stakes game of poker in which Boeing holds all the cards. Brett?
We'll watch that closely. Dan Springer live in Everett tonight. Dan, thank you. Up next, a cold and windy first weekend of the new year. But first, here's what some of our Fox affiliates across the country are covering tonight. WJBK in Detroit with a new meaning for the term Hot Stove League. Take a look at this. A minor league ballpark near Grand Rapids caught fire this morning. The stadium is home to the Tigers' Class A farm team. No one was hurt, fortunately. Several Fox stations are covering reports that former American Idol runner-up Clay Aiken may run for Congress in South Carolina. Aiken, among other things, is a proponent for gay rights. He's said to be considering a challenge to Republican incumbent Renee Elmers. And this is a live look at Eden Prairie, Minnesota from our Fox affiliate KMSP. The big story there tonight, firefighters still do not know what caused yesterday's explosion and blaze at a Minneapolis apartment building. A second body was discovered there this morning. That's tonight's live look outside the Beltway. From Special Report, we'll be right back.